YouTube. Yep, I see a preview in the YouTube box.
Okay.
I do not see our faces yet. Right now, it's just a black box.
Okay.
Okay,
Black box.
now I see our faces. And I am... Oh, actually, it looks like we're live on YouTube. Okay. Well, hello. I guess we are live on
Alrighty.
YouTube.
Hello. Live on YouTube. All righty. Well, that is something that we're trying new things. we we
Yes,
are
so
not
sorry
very
about the
technical and,
delay.
and trying out new things. Yeah. Exactly. We will figure it out eventually. Yeah.
Yes.
That's right. We will get it figured out, and this is us trying almost an unscheduled live. Then, so this is good. This is good. Yeah. So, one of the things we wanted to do was to make sure that we offered a place, um, kind of a midweek check-in almost for folks. We're all, I think, kind of, ooh, it's tough out there. It
Yeah.
just is. It's a hard time, and things are coming at us, all of us so much, and it's so difficult. So I think we wanted to make sure we were offering a space where people could come if they needed some support or just to vent, or a place to just come and feel supported and feel heard. So that's kind of what we were, aiming to make this space about, and this midweek time together.
Right. It can be a little bit of a respite in the chaos that could be our weeks.
That's right. Exactly, exactly. And so one of the things I thought we might could mention today, and of course, if there are comments, please jump in. Anybody who would, want to pop in, and please let us know how you are holding up. And in the meantime, I thought it was so funny. Earlier this week, I was vacuuming. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "Oh, the whole place needs vacuuming, but I really just don't have the energy for it. So should I just not vacuum at all, or just maybe do a little spot vacuuming?" And so I was kind of just laughing at myself about it. And said to myself the phrase that I use often: "Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good." So that the idea of, you know, don't seek perfection so
Mm-hmm.
much that you bypass what is actually could be a very good thing. And so I was kind of laughing to myself about, well, don't let the perfect you vacuum. I don't have time to vacuum, or, the whole place, but I could just do a little spot vacuuming, and that would be good enough. And so anyway, that I thought of that phrase, and I was just laughing to myself. But the more I thought of it in terms of, as sometimes I think a barrier to connection with each other is we are seeking the perfect in the ways we are connecting with others, and oftentimes that can be an enemy of the good. I mean, if we are looking for, perfect responses for those that we are interacting with, or,
Mm-hmm.
I in this relationship, I, was sharing how I was feeling, and the person did not respond perfectly the way I think they should have. And now everything's just a mess. And so I do think this idea of not letting the perfect, you were seeking for the perfect in relationship with each other, not allowing that to be the enemy of what can be still very good connections with each other. Um, Anyway, that's an idea. It just kind of, to put that phrase, "Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good," in relation to how we are relating to each other, might be something that, that could be helpful as we are seeking connection, as we're going about our week.
It's interesting. I'm so happy you brought that up because I think this is something it's very easy to have an all or nothing mentality, whether it's with vacuuming or maybe starting a project, or I like that you're bringing it into relationships also. Like it's either going to be awesome and wonderful or it's just not going to be there. It's going to suck. That's kind of how
Yeah,
my
yeah,
thinking goes.
yeah,
But I'm so
yeah,
glad you brought that up because, you can apply that to yourself and your responses to people,
yeah.
but also to other people's responses too. It's like not everything has to be
That's right.
held to such a high standard, and just like you make mistakes and you're not always bringing your 100%. You can, extend that to
Yeah,
others and say they may not be feeling so well today, or who knows? I mean, you only oftentimes know a small proportion of what somebody else is going through, and they show up to
yeah.
each day just like us with everything that's going on, personal issues. We live in the environment of
That's
there's a
right.
lot of like national issues, and you show up with all of that.
That's right.
So if we can just understand that
That's
they're
right.
bringing their full human selves just like we're bringing our full human selves and all that entails.
Yeah. And that's such a good point. I think, and one of the things that was interesting last week, you weren't here, but one of the things
Mhm.
we talked about was, there was a story that a friend had would shared with me that, she had was relaying to me. She had shared with friends she was having a hard time last week, and so and
Mhm.
the response from the friends was, just power through it, buckle up, power through it. And so last week we talked about how that message of resilience, just getting through it, instead of being an individual thing, it's helpful if that's a more collective thing, that we are resilient together and
I
not
like
all
that.
on individual. But it was so interesting because after that conversation, the live last week, somebody had the wonderful comment that maybe the friends who responded that way, like, just power through, that they may have been very much coming from a good place, that they did not mean their response to be diminishing. The friend who was relaying it, she felt diminished by their response. But the good point was last week, that may not, and probably was not, because this person was in a group of that maybe was not they had not intended the response to come off like that. They just did not know, what to say or the best means of communicating in that moment. And so I thought that was such a good comment from last week. And again, it kind of goes into what we're saying today. So for this friend, to not, maybe not, here's not a break in that relationship with the others that responded to her that way, but maybe these are good relationships that just need some communication, or need some, gosh, I know you did not, I'm sure you didn't intend that to be a hurtful response, but it was, and now we can communicate about it. I think this, not, no, her friends did not respond perfectly, but her friends were good intentioned,
Mhm.
probably, in what they were trying to, they did not want their friend to be suffering and having a hard time. So the friends, they responded, to the best of their abilities in that moment. Like you said, they have their lives going on as well. And so I think it is such an interesting maybe concept that can be helpful, is that, these friends did not respond perfectly, but these are still good friends. These are still good connections. And we can work through, if there was hurt involved, we can work through that. And so I think, yeah, having this idea of, let's release the idea of pursuing the perfect, and let's come back down to, well, this is, these are good intentioned people. These are, the people in this context are good intentioned. They do care for me, and there is good here. And so, granting some grace to each other in relationship, to say, I'm not showing up perfectly, but I am showing up. And so that is something, and we can work with that together.
I really like that. And I wonder, do you think is it in this context, because I feel like there's kind of two issues at play. One is just the humanness of us all, and not being able to fully think about what we're going to say before we say it, and maybe it's better to say something rather than nothing. But then
Yeah,
and the other point kind of brings me back to what we've talked about in the past of being able to hold space for hard feelings. And I do think that response of, oh, we're gonna power through, is a little bit
yeah,
not holding space for those feelings. But again, it could be that in that moment the friend didn't have time to, or just didn't have the capacity to hold
yeah,
space, and maybe they themselves were trying to power through it. Maybe that's something that they were trying to tell
yeah.
themselves, and they're like, oh, this is so helpful. I'm going to tell my friend this. We're just going to power through. So
That's
there's
right.
also that. It's like
That's right.
that they may not be aware that what they said isn't the most helpful.
That's right. They are themselves seeking to power
Yeah.
through. Yeah, I think that is it is, and so if we, and I know myself in the past have been guilty of, this is, the response that I got back, or the interaction that took place really did feel dismissive, or it felt diminishing or discounting, and so the idea of, well, so now I'm dealing with, is this relationship even worth it? Is it, this is so I think this is a helpful concept for me, certainly, is to bring down the issue of, this is not a perfect communication, but to your point, we're all humans, you know trying to live life. How much perfect can there be, honestly, in communications? We are all, so much of the time dealing with so much, and so, if we're waiting on perfect communication to happen, it's probably not going to happen. So how do we say, okay, this is, if it is now, I think this is predicated on the fact that, we're talking about relations that we are in with people who do have, good intentions, and people who do, genuinely care. Obviously this doesn't apply if it's a, a not good situation. But in a situation where, for instance, the example from last week, these are a group of friends who have, they have supported each other, so they're, you're starting from a place where these are people who there is some care there, and now this communication has not certainly been perfect, but it is good in that they are, trying to be there in some way. So I do think it may be a helpful notion. And like you said, I love the piece about, if we hold on to this, not letting perfect be the enemy of the good, that matters to us personally as well. To not, again, we don't have to beat up on ourselves if we did not, show up in that moment perfectly ourselves. That, maybe our response to the person we care about, wasn't, perfect either. Um, but we were good intentioned. And so now can we, if there has been hurt involved, we can still stay in connection and work, with that to continue the good. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Um, I love that notion with ourselves, giving ourselves that grace, that space to say, I am here and I'm trying, and I'm, in this moment it may not be perfect, but I am showing up and the intentions are good, and that's something we can build on.
Yeah, I really like the emphasis on intentions, on getting to the root of who this person is and how they care for you. And if their intentions truly are not good, it's healthiest to let that go. But like you said, some intentions are it's a real foundational thing. And a lot of
Yeah,
times that a person means well, and it can let you grant them more grace if you know that their intentions are
yeah,
good. And I wonder,
that's
at what
right.
point do you think if one response is kind of hurtful, or if maybe these responses are, this tends to be a trend, at what point would you say that it's a good thing to kind of bring up the communication, that it's hurtful, versus when do you just kind of continue to just let it lie?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a good question. It's like, how does a person go about
Mhm.
figuring out, no, now, we're not seeking perfect communication or
Mhm.
perfect relationship, but there does need to be good there. And yeah, I think that's right. It is like, to then go back to the communication piece and be honest about,
Mhm.
this actually was hurtful when you responded in that way.
Mhm.
When I was trying, in the example from last week, when she was trying to share that, she was struggling with her friends. And then, so if she could go back and say, you mean a lot to me, and I wanted to share with you my struggles and what the thing I
Yeah.
was having a hard time with. And then when you responded, like, just power through, that really actually hurt my feelings, and it
Yeah.
probably wasn't what you intended, but it did hurt. So I do want to let you know. And then we could, because you don't want to sit with that. I mean, you don't want to let that simmer. That can,
Mhm.
if that communication is not there, I think it can be hurtful on the relationship, long term, because now you've got something simmering that wasn't
Yeah.
kind of addressed. But again, if you've got people with good intentions, that they want to be in relationship with you, and
Mhm.
they want it to be a good relationship. And so
Yeah.
it does allow, you know and then to say, admit, I don't show up perfectly either. So when you
Mhm.
last week, I'm sure I've said, so it kind of puts us at a playing field where, you know in trying to share with someone, that was that was hurtful to me. I know myself,
Mhm.
I have said things that were hurtful, and I did not mean them. So I
Mhm.
just want to, circle back so we can, you know, have some repair here, because you do mean a lot to me. I think that might be a good way to approach it. Again, as
Yeah.
long, like you were saying, as long as you are dealing with a relationship of care, a relationship that there is mutual care there.
Right. True. And see, what I'm hearing you say is that, you start that conversation with the truth of, hey, you mean a lot to me. This relationship means a lot to me. So again, you're going in with intentions there, and you're saying, we mean a lot to each
Yeah.
other, because I do think that can also hurt to sometimes. It's easy to be defensive about these things when someone brings it up. Oh, you hurt my feelings, and then you're like, oh no, but I didn't mean to. So, but if you go in there and just complete honesty, and it's like,
Yeah.
I know you're coming from a good place. If you do know that, you can say
Yeah.
that, and that
Yeah.
immediately makes the
Yeah.
person that you're talking to feel more validated. Like, okay, this person isn't ostracizing me or trying to, demonize me in
Yeah.
any way. They know I
Yeah.
mean well, and then it's like you would hope that if you did hurt your friends' feelings, that you would want to correct
Yeah.
it and do better in the future too. And yeah, and
That's right.
that conversation would open the chance to be better on both sides, and understanding that, again, it's never going to be
Yeah.
perfect. Even after the conversation,
That's
mistakes are
right.
going to happen, but at least we can try to be a
That's
bit
right.
better.
That's it is. I do. I like this concept, and so kind of holding on to it as we go into the rest of the week, and and it is. I so appreciated you bringing up it. So we are all dealing with so much right now that I think weighs on us. We've talked about before. Every one of us is dealing with, individual difficulties, and now we've got the collective, the national difficulties. So, I do think people are carrying a lot of, very hard things right now, and carrying a lot of what things that feel very, stressing,
Yeah.
in heavy. And so I do think this idea of, if we can, not seek the perfect from each
Mhm.
other, but just know that, that seeking that perfect can be the enemy of the good. And right now, if we can just be good with each other, and when we, we are not going to meet that perfect communication and say the perfect thing all the time, but what we can do is show up, with space for each other, to help each other know, I may not be showing up perfectly right now, but I care about you,
Mhm.
and I want to be here for you. I think that can go a long, long way right now for so many of us, and the things we're all carrying. It can, yeah, one more way that we can try to hold on to connection with each other.
For
Yeah,
sure.
in
And
the hard
also
times. Yeah.
right? And like you said, just, the being there is honestly half the battle, if not more. Just like
Yeah.
having knowing that they're
Yeah.
there, and they're trying to show up, and
Yeah.
just like us, sometimes it's not always convenient to show up for someone else, but to be there and bring, don't let
Yeah.
perfection be the enemy of the good. I mean, I think it's good to show up even if you're not
That's right.
at your best. And I'm sure that that
That's
you
right.
remember like who who was there for you when even if they're it's almost even more meaningful if someone shows up when they aren't at
Yeah.
their best, because it still matters to them to
That's
be
right.
there in whatever capacity they can. So
Oh, I love that too. It's like, they're trying,
yeah, they're
that,
trying.
this relationship matters enough to them that they
Hmm.
are trying. And I think that just, can make a tremendous amount of difference. That this person cares enough to try.
Yeah.
And that's, that we can that right there is what we're after. We're all just trying our best and to walk with each other in the best way we can. So yeah, I think it's such a beautiful concept. So I like that phrase. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And like you said, we can use it. For me, everything from vacuuming the house to to, like you said, even, it's a very practical thing for, trying a new project, or, I've seen it a lot of times in, people in creative endeavors, to at least, if you're always seeking the perfect, that's a very rarely likely to happen. So don't let that stop you from being part of the, doing the good, and creating good. So yeah.
Right.
So
I
thank
think
you so much. It's so good to be with you today, and this live. It's a wonderful midweek check-in, and space for all of us.
absolutely. And the fact that we, had to postpone the live a little bit is also an example of don't let perfection be the enemy of the good. We're
That's
still trying to
right.
figure some things out here, but we're still showing up.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. That's perfect. Like we did. It was a nice example of, yeah. It was
I know. I
like
know.
a wonderful case study. Don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. That's right. That's right.
We
We're
got to
we're
embody it
showing
fully
up
for sure.
imperfectly for sure. That's right. Exactly. Oh, well, wonderful. Well, I look so forward to talking with the community as the week continues. And for anybody, please let us know if how you are in the comments, and we can certainly follow up as the week goes on. And let us know if you have questions, or need anything. And we will look forward to seeing you again next week.
Absolutely. And I'll add the community link to the description and everything. So please know you're not alone.
Yeah,
And yeah, I look forward to next week.
that's right.
Bye bye.
Sounds good. We'll show up again.